All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of South Sudan and the World, where we explore the journeys and insights of influential figures shaping the media landscape in South Sudan today. And today we have a privilege of hosting a distinguished journalist, Patrick Oyet. He's a distinguished journalist who you see on CGTN Africa, and he's currently the president of the Union of Journalists Association in South Sudan. He's an advocate for media freedom, journalist rights, and he's somebody who's changing the landscape of media in South Sudan, who is seen in a lot of places, known in a lot of places. But we kind of want to know briefly about yourself, your upbringing, your childhood. Touch on that.
Yeah, my name is Patrick Oyet. I am currently the head of the Union of Journalists of South Sudan. And as you said, I also work for many actually channels, only that many people, especially in South Sudan, only watch CGTN. So that's where they see me most. But I work for a company known as Feature Story News. And Feature Story News is an American company, and supplies news to a lot of TV channels, including South Africa Broadcasting Corporation, including Israel 24, including WION, including Dorduchan or DD in India, and many others. So I have also had the privilege to work for those channels. I've also worked for CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, SBS, and many others. And I continue still to, of course, work for them as also I continue with the work of the Union of Journalists. And yes, I am South Sudanese. I was born in South Sudan, and my story is I think is I don't know if it's a story that is common to many. But what happened is that in the 1970s, in 1971, when Amin took over power in Uganda, my late mother, who was a daughter to a very prominent church personnel in the name of Wilson Opoka. He was a reverend in Uganda, and he was a Ugandan. He moved to South Sudan with his family because of the way the government in Uganda then was operating. And then when he came here, his daughter, who is my mother, got now married here. So I have a mother from Uganda and a father from South Sudan. And of course, I started my school because I was born in 1981. So 3 years later, of course, the war broke out in the Sudan, and I was still a baby actually. So again, part of my family moved to Kenya, and part moved to the refugee camp. In that included my mother. So we moved to West Nile in Germany, and this is where I even started my primary in Sesia Primary School. Later, I went to a school in northern Uganda known as St. Joseph's College, Laibi, where I completed Senior 4, and then went to Gombe SS. I did my A-level and continued with the studies. And I am here today. I'm a journalist. I also did not only study journalism, I also studied law. So I even though I have not practiced law, but I have actually studied law as well. Yeah. So
What led you into journalism? Was it a passion from a young age? Was there specific experience you that inspired you? Walk us through your journey into journalism.
yes, I always loved, telling stories, and I was so interested in literature even when I was in, especially high school. I didn't have the opportunity to study from Senior 1 to Senior 4 literature because St. Joseph's College Laibi did not have literature. But when I went to A level, I took a lot of interest in literature, and on my own, I really read a lot of books like Merchant of Venice, Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Merchant of
Yes,
Venice, of course, was
great
by
books.
J-Lo. And it was so fascinating, very good. So I loved really, things to do with stories and how, those things were told. So I took a very keen interest on that. But, surprisingly, joining university, it wasn't my first choice. So mass communication was not my first choice. I had wanted actually development studies, imagine. but I didn't get it, so I ended up.
Okay.
Yes, I ended up with mass communication, and then it was I can say it's like a calling. You know, when you are called for something, you can never run away. So what happened? When I finished school, I got out and I was in Kenya. I returned to South Sudan in 2006. Immediately, this agreement was signed in 2005. In 2006, I came and I started work with the newspaper called Southern Eye. But for one reason or the other, I left, and then I just went and started doing, business. I started
Mhm.
a restaurant. That time, custom was a market basically, where now we have the University of Juba customs branch, and where we have the computer lab. All that was market. So I started two restaurants there. So I was running my restaurants, and then I was having a computer where I used to edit songs. Like I would edit the audio of the song. Those songs that used to have those
Oh.
vulgar language, I would remove. So one guy just came to a restaurant. He came basically to eat, and then he found me editing this thing. He was like, "You have these skills." Then I'm like, "Yeah, I am actually a journalist." Then he's like, "No, no, no, no. You shouldn't be here. You should not be here." So I want you to go and work somewhere else. So I was like, but I am really not happy. This thing I've been working and somehow I feel comfortable. So this guy kept coming. Every day he would come and say, I want you to come. I want you to come. And then finally one time I said, okay, let's go and, we see where you want me to go. So he took me to Bakita FM. And when I went there, I talked to the Catholic nun who was there, Sister Cecilia, and she was very interested in me joining. And then again, I found myself back in the media after leaving. So I started working in Bakita. I worked from 2006, late 2006, until 2008. 2008, I joined SSTV. Now it's called SSBC. So I was working for both Bakita and SSTV until 2010. In 2010, now the work became a lot because when I started at SSTV, I was doing youth program, only youth program. So it was possible to do youth and also run some shows in Bakita Radio and so on. But now time came when I was also doing news at SSTV. I was in the programs department and reading news and sometimes collecting news. So we had an agreement that, okay, it would be better for me to go to SSTV and leave Bakita. And I left Bakita and continued with SSTV. And I actually like the way we engage until I went. It was very good, and I maintained even my access to Bakita, the keys, like the security keys and
Yes,
so on.
yes.
So whenever I would want to go to Bakita, I just go and I have access to everything. So, so we kept a very good working relationship. And then, of course, in 2013, war broke out. And but I was here. I never went anywhere. And in 2013, when the war broke out in December, late December, before 2014 could come, peace talk began in Ethiopia. And then at that time, I had already actually applied in 2012. I had applied to work with FSM, but somehow this process did not go through. So I was still with SSTV, and I was assigned to cover the peace process in Ethiopia, which I covered until 2015. But now, when I was covering the peace process, FSM was already, trying to get me. Like, hey, your application has been processed and you're successful. You're supposed to start work, but here I am covering the peace process.
Yeah.
So I could not move. So I had to wait until the peace process was finished, and then now I joined FSN, where I continue to work up to today.
And
Yeah.
then how did you end up at CGTN? You're most known for CGTN.
Yes, I ended up at CGTN because of FSN. FSN is Feature Story News, which is, as I said at the beginning, is an American-based company. So FSN supplies news to CGTN, a lot of news to CGTN. So this is our relationship with CGTN. So I do direct news for CGTN and a lot of it actually for CGTN. But I also still continue to work for other channels like South Africa Broadcasting Corporation, Israel 24, DD India, WION, and so on, but not as frequent as CGTN, of course.
So you're very well versed in the South Sudan media landscape. You've been in it for a long time and you have really earned your stripes. Now, I want to ask you, you were in the media and covering news for South Sudan during one of the harshest moments of our country after independence during the South Sudan Civil War. How was that experience like, dealing with the tension and the peace talks and the conflict?
It has been difficult. It has been very challenging because sometimes I tell people that maybe us journalists in South Sudan, we are not even normal because we see sometimes a lot of things, when the conflict happened, when the conflict started and continued to spread across the country. Some of us visited Bor, for example, when Bor was taken over by the government troops after it was, taken over by IO, and then places like Bentiu, places like Malakal, which used to exchange, hands. You would find it's taken over by the government troops, and then later the opposition troops have taken, and you would see really dead bodies. You see a lot of dead bodies. Sometimes you have to jump over dead bodies to try to bring these stories to light. And sometimes you feel emotional. Sometimes, surprisingly, you don't feel that bad. And I think that is not normal. That is not normal because you see too much. You've seen a lot, and sometimes you start feeling as if you don't have feelings, which is not okay. So yeah, so it has been really very difficult. It has been very tough, and not only for me, but for majority of the journalists who have worked through this time of the crisis. It has been very difficult. People have seen very traumatic things, and the most disturbing thing also is that we do not have a proper psychosocial support where you can get counseling, and you find like many of us, including myself, we are happy when we're working. When you are working, when you are busy, is good. But once you go home, and for example, if you take leave, you need to keep yourself very busy, either go somewhere or just keep busy. But when time comes when like people are not around, people are not around you, and you are just there and you are alone, you see a lot of things. You find you are not okay. So
Yes,
that
yes.
has an impact. Yeah.
And so I think that shows the strength and the character you have to be covering these things during the harshest times. Because I think it's one thing to talk to a journalist who's in the West or in another country who's covering different protests or different things happening versus you yourself and many other South Sudanese journalists who covered conflict, covered war, covered destruction, and covered the worst thing that could happen to a country. And so that's a testament to your character and to the things that you've done. So now you have taken a turn and now you're in the leadership of journalists. You have taken over the Union of Journalists of South Sudan and you have done great work. What made you want to run to be the president of the union?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, it wasn't really my idea originally to become the president of the
Hmm.
Union of Journalists, but I think many journalists saw that there was something I could offer. Coming to election time in 2021, many journalists would come to me and say, we are going for election for the leadership of the union. We would like you to really, take over. We think you can offer something that can help journalists, and so there was a lot of this also from our colleagues who came, and they said really it was important that I contest, and we contested. It was a tough one. We were three, and of course I emerged as the winner. And I came, of course, with a lot of plans. I had one of the things I wanted to do was to unite journalists, because we had some small divisions here and there, including those who studied in Arabic and those who studied in English. And then, we had these small kind of differences, which we promised that we would try to fight it off. And indeed, we have done that. There were also a lot of intimidation, harassment sometimes, and lawful arrest of journalists. And there was not very strong voice coming out. We said also issues of safety we would prioritize, which we have also tried to work on. And then we also discovered, or we did some research and found that in other countries, like in the US, for example, we should not be comparing ourselves to so much, but we aspire to be there. So sometimes we found that they have a press club, which is very, very big and famous and has its own building, its own resources. And we said, why don't we start a foundation for something like that? And for that reason, we have now acquired even land in Bor and in Torit, and we are also working in Western Equatoria and in Lake State to acquire land for UJOSS, where in future we will build. In Bor, we've even acquired land, and we have somebody who is ready to build for us. In Juba, we have somebody who is ready to build for us, but we have not yet, acquired the land. I came to the union to really try to put some foundation in place, especially on issues of structures that are ours, and make sure we work on the issue of safety of journalists. Like now, I am happy that also during this time of ours, we are expecting the first ever elections in the country. So we are preparing
Yes.
journalists for the same. So yeah, we have a very long agenda, long list of agenda that we want to fulfill. And we are pushing with difficulties. Of course, some we have not achieved, especially the issue of welfare. So our journalists are paid well. We have not achieved anything in that field yet. But we hope, and we keep pushing that. We hope that things will be better, because the reason as to why we are failing is the current economic situation in the country. The government is telling us we are unable to increase the salary, and once the government is not able to pay that much, then you can't do much with private media, because you ask them and they say, but we are paying $100 a month. Government is paying less than us, so why are you putting pressure on us? So it becomes a challenge. So we have not achieved much in that area, but we hope things will get better.
Now, Patrick, you have a unique way of doing things. You like to engage and have dialogue. I've seen that you've met with the press secretary in the office of the president, you've met with different government officials, you've talked to them about the role that media can play. What kind of conversations are you having with South Sudan political and governmental leaders about the role media can play in development?
Yeah, we are actually receiving very positive responses from the government, because we are telling the government officials that it will be impossible. First of all, we're telling them that even the office of the president, we told the office of the president that it will be impossible for President Salva Kiir to move door to door to talk to people. That this is my agenda, this is my manifesto, this is what I want to do for this country, is impossible. The only way he can reach people properly is through the media. So the media plays a very important role. And also the idea of violence that is in parts of the country can only be reduced properly by proper use of the media. If the leadership can use the media to promote peace, to promote dialogue, it will have a big impact. So those are some of the messages that we are telling the political leadership, and they are listening. We have also told them that there are certain things that need a bit of government to live, not to put too much, restriction on, especially issues of freedom of expression. And we are seeing that it is happening. The government is becoming a little bit not too sensitive. Some things are left, and people talk about them, which is okay. And there are also other things that the government was already doing. For example, like the issue of making sure that the Ministry of Information has institutions like Media Authority, National Communication Authority, SSBC also run a bit independently. So all those are things that we have told the government that we really support the move, because the Ministry of Information cannot be the only institution. Like, previously, the Ministry of Information would be the one to give license for radio, if you want to operate a radio station, if you want to open a TV station, if you want a media accreditation, if you want everything. So we say that this move is good, where institutions are being put in place to ensure that those institutions work, and then if there is any report or something, they can do to the Ministry of Information. But also in future, there might not be even Ministry of Information, because if you look at most of the developed in the US, in Japan, maybe in UK, there's no Minister of Information, because information is so important that everybody should be left to actually just talk. And you have those regulatory bodies that will make sure that it is not abused. The freedom is not abused. But you don't need a full
Yes,
ministry,
yes.
yeah, of information. So we are really talking about these things, and this is not that we are against anybody's job, because sometimes when you say we don't need Minister of Information, people will say, what about us who are ministers? But in developed countries, that is what is happening. You have those institutions that manage to ensure there is no abuse of this freedom and so on. But you don't need a full ministry for it. Sometimes we create too many ministries that may not be
Yeah, we
might
have a lot of
necessary.
ministry.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
So
what would you?
yes,
Many people say the journalist. You get this a lot from politicians and different people in the society. The journalists don't respect people. They insult people. They're not ethical. They're writing stories that instigate or incite violence or incite people. As your role as the president of the journalists, what do you say to your journalists about maintaining the best industry practices and highest levels of ethics?
yeah, I have always been, and not only me, all my colleagues in the union and even in other media institutions have been talking about professional ethics, following professional ethics, and ensuring we don't promote violence, we do not promote hate speech, we do not promote disinformation, misinformation, and we continue to advocate for this, and we urge our journalists to really, really, bring accurate information and also assess, it doesn't mean that when you get any information, you just release. There are information that may be related to somebody's health. For example, if you know somebody's HIV status, are you supposed to just go and publish it in the newspaper? No, you should not. So there are some information that you may not just publish it out, even if you have. Even as you said, as journalists who work closely sometimes with the government officials, ministers, whether in the executive, in the judiciary, and even in the parliament. Sometimes you get to know these people beyond the office, duties, and therefore you know their families, you know how they live. It is important that that is kept private, because that is their private life. So we always continue to tell journalists to differentiate between these issues. Of course, just like in any profession, you will always find one or two people who will want to go astray. They don't want to follow
Yes,
the
yes.
professional ethics. This sometimes happen. But of course, we continue to tell everybody to follow the professional ethics. Those who also do not follow, we have an internal policy where we also follow up these issues. Apart from sometimes the issue being reported to media authority, we also do our own investigation and see where the journalist has gone wrong. We also give advice. We say, here, we think you have gone wrong, and if you continue like this, it may bring some legal issues. So yeah, we continue to dialogue to also advise our colleagues as far as those issues are concerned.
Now, so last year you really made a lot of progress and you were awarded as South Sudan's Human Rights Defender of the Year. Tell us about that award. How did you feel and how did that impact your life in the work of journalists in the field?
Yeah, first of all, I was surprised that I won, because I was, I think, with so many people who are also doing very good things in the country, and I appreciate the award. And it has given me a lot of encouragement to do more, because it tells me that you are doing something, but there are other people who are appreciating it. That, I think, is better than so many things. It's sometimes better than money, even, because money can come and go and so forth. But appreciation, just to know that somebody appreciates, somebody recognizes the effort that you are making. So I was really very happy that this happened, and it has given me a lot of encouragement. And I believe we are now doing even more than what we did last year as a union. We are starting to move across the country to bring experts to teach our journalists on how to report on elections, which is beginning soon. We are also bringing a lot of journalists from the states to Juba to do where we cannot go to the states. We're bringing them to Juba to also talk about whether transitional justice, how they should report about it, or about elections, or about so many GBV and so on. So yeah, so it has really encouraged me to do more, and the whole team, the whole UJOSS team is encouraged that what we are doing, at least people are recognizing.
And that's good, and you really deserve this. You know, one thing about you, whenever somebody is detained, has an issue, you issue a press statement and you engage with the policymakers, you engage with the leadership, and you tell them why it's important to have a free press and why it's important to allow people to voice their opinions. But on the other side, you're telling the journalists what they should do to avoid upsetting people, because in our country, especially a country when you have a lot of older people in position of power, they perceive you reporting about them as you insulting them personally. Whereas one thing for me to have a problem with Patrick, the minister or the governor, then it's a difference to have a problem with Patrick, the individual. So as we approach the elections, what are some of the conversations that you are having with the government officials? And what are some conversations you're having with your journalists?
Yeah, the first thing we're having with the government is that we are neutral. So you may see us reporting something about what opposition is doing, and don't think that we are members of opposition, because there is a way sometimes, like now the elections, if they are going to happen, what is going to happen, especially as far as reporting is concerned, is that each political group or each political party has a timetable where they'll be moving across the country. And each media house will assign reporters. Yeah, they will assign reporters like, Oyet, you are going to be maybe with SOA, so and so, you are going to be maybe with SPLM IG, you are going to be with SPLM IO. So you move with them and you report their activities, their rallies, and so on. And it is not okay for politicians to say, Oyet now is a member of SOA or a member of SPLM or what. He's just reporting about their activities. So this is the first thing we are telling authorities. And then we are also telling authorities that our journalists will not promote hate speech. Our journalists are not going to promote incitement to violence, where you tell people, if they say that I have lost this election, then we must fight. No, we will not. We will not air those kind of things. We will not see them in the newspapers. And don't say that yesterday I made a statement. Why am I not on TV or on radio or so on? So we don't want to promote hate speech. We don't want to promote incitement to violence. We are also working with other partners like Defy Hate Now in a way to ensure that we also verify information so that we fact check. If something has been said, we first check before it is published. So we are also telling the politicians that sometimes you may see you've said something and you have not seen it in the papers or on radio, you have not heard, is because we're still verifying whether what you have said is factual or not. We don't want to get into problems. So we have that. To the journalists, we're also telling them, please avoid spreading disinformation, misinformation. If you have heard something or you've got some information and you have not verified, please don't publish it. Don't send it out there. And also be neutral, because sometimes because you've been on the campaign trail for so long, you feel like you're part of the other political party now. No, you have to remain neutral. And then also we are telling our media houses to make sure they change people. If I have gone, let me say if I've gone with the FDs, former detainees, let me say Bargazal, let me say I've gone to Northern Bargazal and I've come back, and SPL and again, FDs are going to Eastern Equatoria, I should not now go with the same FDs. They should assign another reporter. So that me now, I can go maybe with SPLM to another region. So there should be change of journalists so that people don't see like this one belongs to this party. so we're also telling media houses to ensure that they change. And then importantly, we are telling also media houses and partners to support the media houses. They should be independent, because look, if SPLM today takes me from Juba to, let's say, wow, they pay for my accommodation, they pay for my feeding, they pay for my transport, how independent am I? You see, it becomes a problem. So we're telling
Yes.
we are telling media houses to look for money, and also partners to support the media houses, so that even if I'm going to report about SPLM, I should be independent. I should have my own money for accommodation, my own money for transport, and my own money for feeding, so that when I'm reporting independently without any influence. So these are the challenges we're having, and we're telling our people to prepare The most important thing is for us to prepare to be ready so that the time of election, we are ready to report. So yeah, those are some of the things we are
It's going to
telling
be a
our
big
colleagues.
challenge. It's going to be a big challenge because another thing that people always discuss is, unfortunately, social media has allowed anybody with a strong following to be a voice and not be
Mhm.
checked or verified. You
Mhm.
find the most popular people that we have on social media are people questionable. I won't get
Yeah.
into names, people. Some of these people live abroad. So, what
Yeah.
about things such as rogue reporters, such as I could be somebody who has 50,000 followers on Facebook or on Twitter, and I'm paid money by a political party to spew propaganda. What
Mhm.
would you say to people like that?
Yeah, first of all, we are telling the common people, everybody that you should have a bit of like media literacy. That you should, even if you are not a journalist, you should know that not all the information that you are seeing, especially on social media, are factual. There are some information that are put there intentionally, maybe for fun, so you should not take it very serious. So as you correctly said, now there are so many writers. Everybody who has a computer or a phone, a smartphone, can write, but it does not mean that what they are writing is factual. So people should be able to see information and sieve and say, no, this information first needs verification, or this information is ready for consumption. So that is something that everybody should really learn, including our children who are even in primary school. They should be told all the time by everybody, not only journalists, not only us, that information that you see on social media, on new media, whatever you call it, not everything is factual. Not everything also that you see there, you must practice it. Not that it is practical. Not that you should react to it, because people can manipulate. Now we have something called AI, artificial intelligence, where people can even get your voice and twist it around and so on. And so when you look at information now, you take your time to really verify that this information is correct or not. So that is now upon everybody to really do something about information that they find. Because now things are changing. Previously, we used to have a situation where you would lack information. A newspaper would lack, for example, information to fill the pages, or a radio or TV. Now there is too much information. There's too much
Yeah,
information.
overflow.
Whereby you choose, yeah, you are now wondering what should I put and what should I leave out, So really, people need to also be able to identify those things. Yeah.
And I think also you mentioned a great point. The public plays a role more than the government and the journalists, because it's the public if that decides if this is credible, if this is fake, if this is propaganda, if this is an agenda. Because too often I feel as if that with any society, if you're able to do something and get away with it, you will do it. Meaning that if you believe that misinformation can be used to incite people and it can benefit you politically, you'll do it. But now, what are some things that in the union you are doing to sensitize the public to let them know that, okay, this is a source, this is propaganda, this is not credible? And also considering the education level of our country, the different languages in the country, some people don't even speak English, some people don't speak Arabic, some people only speak Denka or Choli or Zande or Nuer or Cholo. How do you deal with so diversity when trying to ensure that the public is prepared to take in the correct information and not be
Okay.
triggered?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Like what we are doing, first of all, the way we form the union is that we ensure that, of course, we cannot accommodate every tribe, but we ensure that we have
Mhm,
people from the region, from all the regions are represented. That's number one. Number two,
mhm,
whenever we go to a place like if we go to Yambio, we are going there to train journalists on, for example, election reporting. We are not just only training them, but we are also going to the media houses where they work, radio stations, and we have normally engagement with the public. And they also help those journalists who are in the state who speak the language. They help. So we always go and do this media literacy, where we tell the public, hey, elections are coming. These are the good things. What are the conditions for you to contest according to the Electoral Commission? If you want to also vote, what must you have? But also, as we go for election, there's going to be campaign, meaning different people will come and present their point that they want to do for you. And then Other people may even go abusing others. This is not allowed. Issues of tribalism, issues of nepotism, issues of abusing, using of some information may be lies. So you should be able to. So we make sure that when we go to the different states, we engage with the public so that at least the days that we're there, in most cases, we spend about a week. The week that we are there, we're having radio talk shows at least almost every day, and we make sure that the public is also aware. And we expect that those journalists that we leave now behind, they will those radios to ensure that we give people as many as possible with accurate information so that they prepare. And we also hope that the different institutions that are there, like the Electoral Commission, the political parties council, and so on, they will all go out there for civic education, and they will also be telling people what exactly they need to do in order for us to have really a peaceful election. And we should not fear. We should not fear election. I know there are a lot of debates. People are asking, are we going to have the election or not? This one is a political question. We may not answer. It's only politicians who can answer. But for us, first of all, as journalists, as technical people, we must prepare. And even as the population, as the people of South Sudan, we must prepare for election. And we should not fear. If we keep fearing, and then we are going to fear until when? We are now 12
Yes.
years old. We are going to be
And
13.
it's
And then
necessary.
we keep fearing. Yeah. Oh, we are going to have violence. Oh, we are not going to have violence. I think we should think that we will not have it. And we should just vote. It's just a vote. We do it. We may not do it 100%. It will not be perfect, but it will give us an idea of how best we should do the next one. So we prepare, we should prepare, and we go for this exercise. Yeah.
I think you mentioned a good point, and this is the issue of South Sudanese and their perception of elections. We had an elections in 2010. That was 14 years
Yes.
ago. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a long time. And I think one thing that people don't understand is that when you have an election, what election does is it legitimizes the government and it gives the power back to the people. Because currently we have a transitional government that the power is predicated on armed opposition groups who went to Addis Ababa or Khartoum and negotiated with the government. And the government had to make concessions to ensure that these people are in so they don't create chaos. But when you have an election, I believe with an election, you can have more media freedom. You can have more engagement with the government because these people are going to be elected. Right now, you have MPs that have been in power for 14 years and haven't been elected. I mean, what leverage do you have
Hmm.
over them? But now, if Patrick, you
Hmm.
are my MP and you are elected, I can say, Patrick, we're going to have elections every 4 or 5 years. Just remember, during election time, we'll ask you and hold you accountable. Now, I ask you, do you think the elections can improve media freedom in South Sudan?
Definitely, definitely. Election will improve media freedom in South Sudan greatly because if you are elected and imagine you reported to be, for example, curtailing freedom of expression, curtailing the freedom of the media, and so forth. It's not only even that, the rule of law itself is going to improve because people will, like definitely when we go for election, there are going to be losers and winners. And if at all these people who lose the election, they go to court to say, I've lost election, I think I've lost unfairly, I go to court, maybe I win, maybe I lose. This already is, encouraging whatever media authority has decided is not okay, we go to court, rather than hunting journalists, running after them and so on. So I think greatly election will really, really help in improving the freedom of the media, and also especially when the media reports the issue of election properly, fairly, and in a very neutral way. It will give the public will start trusting the media that, okay, media is going to give them accurate information, and media must be protected. So I believe that election will play a key role in ensuring that freedom of the press is attained in the country, and journalists will be more free. If they do a good job, and we expect them to do a good job, they will be respected even more to bring accurate information to the public regarding election, whether they are campaigns, whether they are voting, and what people think of the results and so forth. It will really have a big impact.
Now
Yeah.
we looking forward as we look towards elections, the future of the country, and the different things that we aspire our country to be. How do you see the media landscape in South Sudan growing to foster more growth? and for it to become a vibrant and robust industry? What do you think needs to be done? And in your capacity, what are you going to do to ensure that this media industry is growing and benefiting the people?
The media industry is improving, by the way. There's a lot of improvement. One of them is to remove the media from being directly under the Ministry of Information to being under either SSBC or Media Authority or National Communication Authority. This is great because you see, when the media is directly under the Ministry of Information, what it means is that the media is actually under the executive. You see, but if the
Yes.
media is now under media authority, then media authority, if there is something, they can be questioned by the parliament, and I'm sure that in future appointment will first be approved by the parliament. So you see, it gives a kind of, and the parliament represents the people, so it gives more power, therefore, to the people. So that move of creating these institutions is already good. So that provides some kind of freedom. And also, in as much as we have pockets of issues here and there, the number of arrests, intimidation, threats, and so on against journalists is actually reducing. There are still issues. It's not that totally everything is okay. There are still issues. There are also, in terms of improvement, there are also more journalists who are graduating from higher institutions of learning. They are joining the profession, which is good. That also helps in improvement. The laws are also there. Now, if you want to open a radio station, you know what to do. If you want to open a newspaper, you go to media authority, you know what to do. The laws are there. They have some challenges here and there, but they are being worked on, which I think is good. In order to improve, to even do better, is number one, to ensure that some of the we have some issues with some of the laws. Like now, if you want to open a radio station, it's a bit expensive and also complicated process because you have two institutions that have almost the same mandate. You have media authority, which is supposed to license you, gives you a license, and then after getting that, you need to go to National Communication Authority also to get a license, to get spectrum, to get a frequency. I don't know, 98 point what or what this one you need to get from National Communication Authority, and you have to pay. And I remember one of my friends wanted to open a radio station, and he was asked for $25,000 because it's a private radio station. That is too much for our economy for somebody to pay to open a radio station. So those are some of the challenges that are there. Now, what are we doing? We are, and of course, some kind of arrest and some kind of intimidation that are there, they are reducing, as I say. They also tend to discourage some of our colleagues from practicing. They say, I would rather I have a degree in mass communication, in journalism, or in communication studies, but I would rather go and work in an NGO, not to work in the media. So that also is discouraging people. But the fact that we are always saying, please let the media do its work, let the media do its work, at least is helping. What needs to be done is to harmonize some of the laws. Like you find the same mandate given to media authority, given to National Communication Authority. There should be a one-stop shop where you stop and you pay everything and you get your documents and you open. So in other words, let it be easy to open a radio station, to open a newspaper, to open a TV. It should be easy because we need them. We need these investments. If you see even other countries in the region, all of them have private media, and so on. So we also need that. Another issue that needs to also be improved is the issue of costs, the issue of welfare payment. Payment of journalists should improve. Of course, this internationally, I can say without fear that we are paid well. We are paid well. But how many are we who are working for international media? We are not many, you know. So, and if you see also in the region, like for example in Kenya, the journalists who are working in the local media, they're paid well. So why don't we at least do even half of that? So those are things that need to be improved, and this cannot improve unless the economy, of course, gets better. So it is a bigger problem that needs to be resolved. Because, for example, when I was working for SSTV, we were paid well. The money we were paid was okay. It was totally fine. One could develop, you know. But because of the economic situation and the loss of the South Sudanese pound value against the US dollar and so on, is what has made the situation difficult. And that time also the private media was paying better. So another thing that needs to be done, of course, is to ensure that the pay improves, and also to continue to build capacity of journalists, because you see there are new things that keep coming, and sometimes you've studied and finished your school, you come out, and these things never existed. Like, for example, artificial intelligence now is coming, people are using them in some places in the newsroom. So if you have people whose capacity have not been built, then you can't expect something from them. The same to new technology that is coming. People used to do live with very big equipment. Of recent, people used to have something called Bigan, which is very expensive. People used to do live programs with it. Now you see we're having program over the internet live. Where
Yeah.
people do live
Just
using
with an
phones.
iPhone. Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely capacity of journalists need to continue to be built so that we see improvement in the media, not only in terms of technology, even laws are also changing in the country. Like now we have the new constitution being made, we have the media laws that we talked about when the country was formed in 2011. It wasn't there. Now the laws are there. So all these things need like the media to be, engaged, to be told, so that they know, and then they can pass the same information which is accurate to the public. So those are some of the things that really need to be done. And also our government should encourage people who have resources to invest in media, because first of all, it will generate money for the owners, those who are going to invest, but also taxes for the government and employment for the people of South Sudan. So I think it's important for those things to be done, and then we'll see improvement in the industry. As you just majorly, we are doing the capacity building, as I say. We are also building infrastructure, because if we build a UJOSS house in Juba, we are dreaming of building it very big. Then others can
Mhm.
even rent. It's also a landmark. It's something that people will say, "Oh, UJOSS has a house." So we are trying also our best with the capacity, the small capacity that we have. We're doing our best, and we'll continue to push for more, so that the industry generally can change, can improve, and regulation also should be fair enough to allow people to work freely. So yeah, those are some of the things that I think are important when done.
Very well
The industry will do.
articulated. Now, as we're wrapping up, I want you to say some final words of wisdom to our listeners of South Sudan and the world who are interested in journalism or media or storytelling. What would you say to a young person who has a passion for media and journalism?
Yeah, I would tell them not to give up. And if you have the passion, the profession is there, join it. It is not easy for anybody to join any profession. There are people who think, I want to be a doctor, I want to be, an engineer. Maybe it's easier. And some people say, but being a journalist is very bad. You go to war zone, you do this and this. But it is, every profession has its own challenges. You see, when COVID-19 came, people who had medical background faced a lot of challenges. So you cannot run away. If that was your call, you say, no, 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 I don't want to be a doctor because people are dying of COVID. So that is just to tell you that every profession has a challenge. But if it is your call, if it is your interest, if it is your passion, then go for it. And as people who are already in the profession, we are willing to help. We're willing to support you in whatever way you want. Even right now, we are actually supporting a number of young people. For example, in Juba, we have Juba Girls Secondary School. We have journalism club where every term we visit them, we do mentorship for them. In Western Equatoria, we're doing the same. It is just lack of resources. Otherwise, you want to do across the country in many secondary schools. The benefits you get from the profession, and also the disadvantages that are there, which is not to discourage you, because every profession, as I say, has its own disadvantages. So people who want to join, the young people who want to join, you're very much welcome. And be sure that institutions like Union of Journalists will support you to ensure that you achieve your goal. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that from Patrick. If you are a journalist, somebody aspiring in the media field, you've heard it. You know where to find them. You can find Patrick online. He's very active. UJOSS is very active, and the door is open. Thank you, Patrick, for sharing your remarkable journey and insights with us today. Your dedication to press freedom, human rights, and development of our country is really applauded, and you deserve all the credit for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for joining us on South Sudan and the World.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
That's
Thank you.
another episode, guys. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and you can also follow Patrick. His name is Patrick Oyet, Oyet. You can find it there in the episode links. We'll share his name, and you can look up his work and the work of UJOSS. And if you follow CGT in Africa, you'll find him there. You guys take care. Have a great day.